Hello, welcome back to the Arturia DX-7 tutorial. Another deep dive for you today, and I've picked the City Slickers sound. This is what it sounds like. We've got two different sounds in the algorithm here, and as usual I'll throw half of it away before even thinking about it. So firstly, we need to figure out where this sequence is coming from. We've obviously got some kind of sequence, and there's multiple different ways you can get to a kind of a sequence-based sound in the DX. So let's figure out where that's coming from. And I'll actually strip one more thing away. I'll throw the modulator away, make it even simpler. Okay, now we can see that the arpeggiator's not on, so we're going to jump straight over to the mods page, and we can see that the sequence is running, and every time I press a key it restarts because we're in sync mode. It's not the kind of sequence that you might imagine it is. If I press any note, it doesn't matter what note I press, we don't get pitch variations. They're always that note. Just happened to press a G. Then let's go back to our comfortable territory of C. All of those notes that we're hearing are different flavors of C. So it's a tonal effect that we're having, not a pitch-based one. And we can see over in the mod matrix that the step sequencer is affecting operators 3, 5, and 6. But at the moment, we're only hearing operator 1. So the step sequencer, as far as the matrix is concerned, is having no effect. I'm just going to jump very quickly to the other two pages to show you that we've got some stuff plugged into the macros. But apart from saying that none of it's got anything to do with pitch, I'm going to ignore all of that for now. It might seem like I've just kind of jumped randomly all over there, but I'm having a really kind of scattershot sweep through the preset to try to find where my sequence-based stuff is. So I'm starting to use some intuition and heuristics to think, well, in the complexity of the DX7 with so much stuff to look at, where do I want to look very quickly to try to get as much information as I possibly can? And just jumping across those couple of matrix tabs, then I know that the middle page is completely empty, and I'm going to be interested in my data sliders over here, but that's it. Now we want to try to figure out where that pattern is coming from. And obviously with the sequencer, we've got the gate steps to be concerned with. So that's going to have a very large effect on the sound that we're hearing, in terms of every time one of those gates, we hit one of those gates, it re-triggers the carrier envelope. In other words, it plays another note. So that's certainly having some kind of effect on it. But can you hear when I press the key? I'm going to press like lots of keys really quickly. You can see me pressing on the virtual keyboard and probably hear on the mic. I'm not getting any sound. So the initial hit of the beat doesn't contain any sound. Well, we know it's got nothing to do with the step sequencer. None of those operators are in use at the moment. We've got a couple of LFOs. I'm going to press a key down, and I'm going to start doing my key mash thing, and I'm going to disable LFO1. That's had no effect on anything. Let's put LFO1 back. Let's do the same with LFO2. Right, there we go, found it. So let's have a look at what LFO2 is doing. It's having a modulating effect on the volume. What's the shape of LFO2? It's a square wave. Can you see this shape is the clue as to what's going on? For the first half of each beat, the LFO is effectively suppressing the volume. The volume is going either to 0 or 1, 0 or 1, and it's doing that. The entire duty cycle lasts one beat. So for half of the beat it's off, and for half of the beat it's on. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if we count 8 subbeats within the bar, we've got some clue as to what's going on. And when we turn the LFO off, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now each beat is doing a kind of laser zap thing. And the LFO is taking away the first half of each of those laser zaps, and all we're hearing is the little tail bit at the end. It's really cool. It took me ages to find out what was going on with this. So we're actually counting the ands. You go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But we're still not done with our pattern investigation because it's not strict 4 beats. Can you see we've got 5 gates open on the sequencer? I'm just going to turn this 5th one off and press the note again. Now it is consistent. And. Bring this one back in, the 5th gate. We're getting a dudum at the end. Now we'll jump over to the envelope page and have a look at the shape of operator 1. What's the carrier looking like from the wave perspective? So you can see, just try to ignore all of the other lines and just concentrate on the green one. And you can see that double pulse, the 4th and 5th beats generating a double pulse. And this is what we're seeing here, is the volume of the carrier. So every time I press a key, we hear no sound because the LFO is suppressing the volume. For the first part of the envelope, we get no sound. And then when the square wave goes to 1, basically maximum output, the envelope suddenly jumps into life and lets us hear some sound. But at the same time, it's tailing away. And so we're just hearing this little kind of tail end of each of the sounds. Very, very cool. Let's change the shape. So now the volume's consistent. The LFO's still doing its thing and cutting out half of the sound, but now we're not getting the volume, the natural volume descent from the envelope itself. Because I messed around with a few things there, I'm just going to throw the sound away, get back again, turn carrier 3 off. And now I want to hear what effect the modulator is having on the carrier. So hardly any until the double stop at the end of the pattern. Why is that? Because for most of the time, the modulator's amplitude is being suppressed in exactly the same way that the carrier's amplitude is being suppressed. These two waves are basically tracking each other. And so for the most part, the modulator's having very little effect on the frequency of carrier 1. But when that double hit comes in, then we get more of the brighter action, more of the higher amplitude action. That's when the modulator's having an opportunity to have a greater effect on the carrier, and so we're hearing it more. Again, if I just manually mangle this envelope shape and take everything completely out of the equation, so that's what the carrier sounds like when it's being maximally modulated, when operator 2 is having as much effect as possible. But normally that's not what's happening. It's tracking the green curve. I'm not going to be able to get it exactly back where it was. And only when we get that double shot at the end of the pattern is the amplitude high enough for us to really hear it. Now then, throw that away, come back again, throw carrier 3 away. Now that we've got the modulator up and running, let's have a look back at the modulation matrix, because the mod wheel is mapped to mod envelope rate multiplier. In other words, the modulation wheel is capable of speeding up all of the modulator envelopes. Now that we know what it's going to do, I'm going to go back to the envelope page so that we'll see it. Mod wheel's currently turned all the way down. Now I'll turn it all the way up. So what's basically happening there is that the modulator is now done, long done, by the time we get to hear any sound, and we've actually lost the effect that we had when the modulation wheel was turned down. It's unusual that a positive increase on the modulation wheel actually takes some of the kind of sonic interest out of the sound. It's better off down from a colour perspective. That's where you get that little plop. Let's have a look at the data entry sliders. So slider number 1 is controlling operator 1's cutoff. Let's see if we can hear that. Oh, yeah, we can, because all the sound disappears. But apart from acting as a pretty crude volume control, it's not really doing very much tonally to the sound. This is an interesting one on macro 3, got carrier envelope rate multiplier. So let's head back over to our screen again. Get the sound going. See if we can see and hear what this is doing. So now, because I've just slowed down the rate multiplier, don't forget this is a negative modulation here. So by turning the slider all the way up, I'm decreasing the rate multiplier. You can see now the envelope traveling more slowly, which means we're getting to hear more tone. Turn it all the way down. And it gets quieter because it's getting through the upper peak more quickly. And finally, macro 4 is mapped to FX1 dry wet. Let's have a quick look at that one. So this is a destroy setting, so it's going to be pretty brutal. I feel like I'm in a 90s rave. It's a cool sound. Okay, great stuff. So that's the left-hand chain pretty much plumbed now, and a lot of the stuff that we've just had a look at we'll need to have a look at in the context of the other chain. Let's throw all that away, come back again. Now I'm throwing carrier 1 away. Quick check of our basic sound. So we're still getting the same pattern. Don't forget the step sequencer operates on all carriers, so we're still hearing the same fundamental pattern, but it's obviously having a different tonal effect. Let's throw both of the upper modulators away so that we can have a little bit more of a listen to these two. So really interesting envelope shape on the carrier here. This is operator 3's envelope shape. And remember when we were looking at the modulation matrix, macro 3 lets us control the speed of the carrier envelopes. So before we go any further, let's see what effect that has on the sound when we mess with data slider 3. So at maximum, we're only ever on the uptick slope. Pull it all the way down, and we're getting all the way through the volume increase and decrease. And to make matters even more confusing, our step sequencer is now having yet another effect on the amplitude, because operator 3's level is controlled by the height of the step sequence. So the bigger the bars, the more relative amplitude the carrier is going to have, and obviously the reverse as well. So we've got a very complex volume graph on this side. So all of those different notes or moments of time, the 16ths of sequence, are all playing at different volumes and still under the effect of LFO2 as well, doing this to the master volume. Operator 3's also got its own cutoff slider, macro 2. Bit more interesting than the first one. And again, total silence when we bring the cutoff right down. Okay, so that's our basic sound. Let's start bringing the upper modulators in as well. Throw the sound away, come back again, turn carrier 1 off, and now we'll just take operator 6 out. And so we've now got the triple chain. So we've got a much brighter sound now. Let's have a look at operator 5. So a really simple envelope at 64, ratio 64, so it's basically as fast as it can possibly be. This thing is hurtling along. Start bringing it down. So why are we getting those modulating variances over the course of the life of the sequence? Well, it's because the mod matrix is having a modulation effect on the operator 5 level and frequency. So it's actually modulating the frequency of the modulator according to how high or low these step bars are. So this is where things start getting a little bit complicated. I can't hold all of this in my mind. Very few people, I would imagine, can truly visualize what an FM synthesizer does. You've really got to use your ears to figure it out mostly. But this is a modulator modulating a modulator, and the amount of modulation that it's applying is being changed for every single one of those 16 slices. But you can hear it. Loads of really interesting sounds there. This is the kind of parameter that you might want to automate and, you know, get some automation on this and just mess around with it, have fun. And that's quite brutal actually, and now I'm tempted to want to bring my crush back in. Lovely. Let's take that back out. Can't hear anything when that crush setting's up. Throw 5 away, bring 6 in. And you might think, well, why are you bringing 6 in? 6 is turned all the way down to nothing. Well, it's because it's having its level increased by the step sequencer. So if any of these bars are positive, then all of these modulations are being applied to operator 6's level and frequency. If the bar is below the axis, any of these negative bars, then operator 6 is having no effect because its native level is 0. So you have to have some positive modulation coming out the step sequencer for it to be able to do anything, but it is doing something. And so we need to listen to it. Now what I'm going to do with this one is arbitrarily increase its level to 50%. So it's matching and basically making up for the rest of the modulation so that we can hear it. We've got this really weird envelope. But I want to hear it. What's it doing? Maybe if I disengage the LFO. Slowing everything down. There we go. Just caught it. That took some finding. This is a preset. Don't be afraid. Throw all of the settings away. Do whatever you need to find out what that thing is doing, and then undo all of your changes, come back, and now you've got some basic understanding. It was too difficult to hear this change all on its own, and so I had to absolutely hack and slay, but I'm there now. You can hear that. kind of fluttering modulation effect that it's having. What does that sound like with crush? Nice. Okay, so that's the carriers and modulators. Have we got anything else to look at? Yes, we have. Let's throw all that gubbins away, come back again, because some of these operators are having their pitch modulated. Let's see which ones. 1, 2, and nothing on the right hand chain. So operators 1 and 2 are also having pitch changes. I'm just going to take 3 away. Let's hear this. Take my LFO away. It's such a different sound. Now you can hear the pitch change. There we go. Let's mess with the pitch curve. Now it's just worth mentioning again, we did deal with this in the tutorial series. Both of these operators are having their pitch modulated simultaneously, which means any ratios that they're working with are going to track, and so we hear it as a smoothly descending pitch. But obviously that's all in the context of one of these things being a modulator. It's furiously changing operator 1's pitch up and down, but the ratio by which it's doing is descending as we sweep through the pitch curve. And finally, we have an opportunity to look at LFO1. It's having a little bit, and it is absolutely minuscule, on operator 6's level and frequency. I'm not going to go through all of the butchery to get you back there, but basically LFO1, the most significant effect is the fact that it's bringing the delay in. FX2 is a delay. And so while this LFO is sweeping up and down, the delay is basically turning on and off quite quickly. So some of the notes are dry and some of them are wet. Very nice. Hope you found that useful, and if you did, please hit the like button, helps me out with the YouTube stuff. And if you'd like to check out my Patreon details, that would be really appreciated as well. That's the end of the tutorial series. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you subscribe to my channel, you'll catch me for the next one. Hope to see you then. Thanks a lot.